Are you ready to fight? We are. Now, good evening. It's great to be here. I want to congratulate all the honorees. Morgan Cox, thank you for that wonderful introduction and for all you do for the board. I've had the pleasure of meeting Morgan, his partner, Darrell, and their two beautiful sons, Marco and Lockett, a great family. And a little shout out to the New Yorkers on your board. Patty Ellis, Jody Patterson, whose cousin works for me, Jamal Webster, and Paul Boskin. Thank you. You know what your proudest title is, New Yorker. And of course, a great thank you to HRC's new president, Alfonso David. I met Alfonso for the first time in his new role. I've known him for a long time before that. And I'm confident there is no better person to lead this wonderful organization forward. He was instrumental, and I'm so proud of him and my state in making New York one of the first states to pass marriage equality. And I have no doubt with Alfonso, the best is yet to come. And what a great speech. Let's hear it for Alfonso. So, it was a slow news week last week. It's just a hunch, but I have a feeling that on Monday, the White House is going to announce another infrastructure week. I guess that's a Washington joke. In all seriousness, we are entering a very delicate time in our democracy. I want all of you to know I've been speaking with Speaker Pelosi constantly, and I fully support her decision to open an impeachment inquiry into President Trump. In the coming months ahead, Congress has a serious job ahead of us. We are in rare constitutional waters. But you have my word that Speaker Pelosi and I will treat this matter with the gravity and seriousness and dignity it demands. But Donald Trump, make no mistake about it, if the facts merit, as Alfonso David said, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer are coming for you. Now, over the past few years, it's felt like our progress has stalled, even reversed. We careened from making great and wonderful leaps forward in LGBTQ equality to alarming steps backward. We know that we have more progress to make, but sometimes we feel powerless to make it. Tonight, my friends, I encourage you to take the long view, because I believe in my heart that justice and full equality are written in America's destiny. In my own lifetime, I have seen the seas of justice change for LGBTQ Americans, sometimes lapping slowly like the tide, sometimes crashing like a righteous wave. And the course of those events has reshaped the story of my family in ways I could scarcely imagine. I graduated in 1971 from college, and at that time, almost no one was out. But I was elected to Congress in 1980, and my seatmate for 18 years in the House Banking and Judiciary Committees was none other than Barney Frank. After Barney was out, he was thinking of quitting. I urged him to stay, and I'm so glad he did. After he was out, I noticed that something had changed. Barney still had that acerbic wit, but he was a much happier legislator and a much happier person. He was. A weight had been lifted. And years later, when he found love and married Jim Reddy, he was a new person, a more fulfilled person. Shortly after Barney came back to work in the house after he was out, someone from a magazine came over to me and said, "Tell me how it is with Barney here." And I told him at some length how I thought Barney had become much a happier, more fulfilled person. In the late 80s and 90s, every few months, I'd meet someone who was a friend or acquaintance in college. In the course of catching up, they'd confide, "You know, I'm gay." I couldn't tell anyone in college, but they said to me, they too, like Barney, were much happier, more fulfilled people after coming out. These moments, these experiences motivated me to come out for marriage equality before most politicians of my day. At the time, of course, I didn't know it would have such a personal impact. Fast forward to a restaurant in San Francisco a few years ago. At dinner, my daughter Allison told my wife Iris and I that she was gay. I had no idea. After dinner, Iris asked me, "How do you feel?" I said, "Whoa, this is sort of brand new." Asked me again in the morning. And you know how sometimes your mind processes things overnight and you wake up and it's resolved? Well, the next morning, here's how I felt. I said to myself, she's the same person I loved so much the day before. But now I love her even a little more because she carried the knowledge of her sexuality and guarded it with such quiet strength and grace and dignity. Now, let's fast forward again to last year. Our daughter Allison married her beautiful partner Elizabeth. Her nickname is Biz. There are a lot of Texans here. She's from Houston, Texas. They married happily, beautifully, on November 18th, and they're living happily together in Brooklyn. But in all seriousness, a few years after my older daughter, Jessica, married her husband, Michael, my daughter and daughter-in-law are wonderfully planning to live their lives together in the same freedom as my older daughter and her husband. Thanks to marriage equality, old constraints of financing, where to have kids, where to live, where to work, are gone. It's amazing, it's wonderful, it's beautiful. And I supported marriage equality early on because I thought it was the right thing to do. But now, so many can live richer lives, happier lives like Allison and Biz. My story should be a lesson to every single person to do the right thing, particularly those people in power. Right now, Allison and Biz's happiness is being repeated hundreds of times every day in every corner of the country. Now, I wanted to share this personal note with you because I remember on the day of my daughter's wedding how eternally grateful I was for how far we had come. I was grateful because of the work that you and HRC did, advocating for change, demanding full equality, and it led my daughter to such wonderful happiness with her wife. But you sit and I stand here knowing there's a whole lot of progress we have to make. Knowing that too many suffer violence and fear, bullying and barriers, ceilings on their career, and legal obstacles to adoption, immigration, and more. Knowing how transgender Americans can be fired from their job because of their gender identity. How the president is seeking to deny them from proudly serving in the military. how transgender Americans, particularly transgender Americans of color, suffer rates of violence far exceeding that of any other group. One of your speakers tonight delivered a powerful message, Alfonso did, reading the names of the 18 black transgender women who were murdered this year alone. We must continue to shine a light on that violence and hate that the trans community faces until we change attitudes, hearts, and minds, and most importantly, until we change the laws to afford them the very same protections that every other American has. That's what America is about. So I want to applaud HRC for your new initiative to greatly expand your fight for the trans community. We're certainly not home free, but I do know this. If we work hard, justice will prevail. And I mean that. Last year, HRC helped re-elect Tammy Baldwin and bring amazing women like Jackie Rosen and Kirsten Sinema to the Senate, helped Doug Jones win in the deep red state of Alabama. And next year, we will do even more. If we work hard, we will take back the Senate. Guess what we will do? We will ditch Mitch. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And as Majority Leader, I promise you one of the first things I'll do is put the Equality Act on the floor, and I believe it will pass. We all know equality is not a Democratic issue or a Republican issue. It's an American issue, and we're asking our friends on the other side of the aisle to stand up for that great American issue now. So, my friends, it's been a long journey. It took millions of Americans 200 years to build this awesome country of fair laws and opportunity. Americans who fought, protested, and inspired our country to weed out injustice and move ever closer to our highest ideals. In order to achieve equality and fairness for everyone in the LGBT community, we must follow in their footsteps. We must follow in the footsteps of the women who gathered at Seneca Falls. We must follow in the footsteps of the marchers who crossed a bridge in Selma. We must follow in the footsteps of the brave gay and transgender New Yorkers who 50 years ago at a place called Stonewall taught the country the power of resistance. In this moment when so many of us have profound anxiety about our country, I want to remind everyone here of an unassailable truth. America does change for the better, but its capacity for change and the speed and scope remains entirely up to us. We can't let up. We must continue to push and prod, to march and vote and fight and use our voice, not just for the future, but our families, our children, and all those who come after us for generations. We will leave them a more equal world. Thank you. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for supporting this great organization. We will win the fight. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Senator. Voter suppression is a scourge in our country, and we can safely say it has changed the outcome of elections. This voter suppression